This officer thought the prison yard belonged to the gangs. The 4 inmates surrounding the new man in orange believed the same thing. They told him he was going to die right there on the concrete. What none of them knew was that the man standing calmly in front of them wasn't just another prisoner. And before the day was over, that prison yard would become the center of a federal investigation. But before we get into this story, tell me something in the comments. Where are you watching from today? And if you enjoy stories where hidden power flips everything upside down, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because YouTube sometimes stops showing these videos, and you might not see us again. Now back to the prison yard, because the threat had already been made. You die here. The words came from the tallest of the 4 men. His name was Travis Cole. Inside Redstone Federal Correctional Facility, Cole wasn't just another inmate. He was the yard, 6'3", tattooed from neck to wrist, 20 years inside the system, 3 confirmed assaults, 2 gang affiliations, and a reputation that made most inmates avoid eye contact. Behind him stood 3 others, Garza, Mills, and Carter, each one with the same shaved head, the same coiled posture, the same violent patience. 4 men, 1 target, the new inmate standing in front of them. Marcus Hale, orange jumpsuit, prison number stitched on the chest, no tattoos, no gang colors, no fear. The yard around them had gone quiet. It always did when something like this started. In prison, violence wasn't chaos. It was a performance, and the audience always knew when the show was about to begin. Dozens of inmates stood scattered across the concrete yard, some pretending to exercise, some sitting at the metal picnic tables. But every pair of eyes was watching the same thing: Marcus Hale and the 4 men circling him. Cole stepped closer. "You deaf?" he said. Marcus didn't answer. Cole's jaw tightened. "Because I just told you something important." Marcus finally looked up. His expression was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that didn't belong in a place like Redstone. "I heard you," Marcus said quietly. Cole smirked. "Good." He gestured around the yard. "This is our block." Marcus didn't respond. Cole leaned closer. "You're new?" "Yes." "So you don't know how things work yet." Marcus glanced around the yard. The guards were standing near the fence line, 2 of them, watching, but not moving. Marcus noticed something else too. Neither guard looked surprised. That detail mattered. Cole continued, "Everyone who comes into this yard pays respect." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "How?" Cole smiled. "Depends." Garza cracked his knuckles. Mills shifted his stance. Carter stepped behind Marcus. Now the circle was closed. 4 men, 1 exit. Cole leaned closer. "Sometimes respect means handing over your commissary." Marcus said nothing. "Sometimes it means working for us." Still nothing. Cole's smile faded. "And sometimes," he said slowly, "it means bleeding." A ripple moved through the watching inmates, because this part always came next. Marcus finally spoke. "I'm not interested," Garza laughed. "Wrong answer." Cole studied Marcus carefully now, because something about the man in front of him didn't match the usual pattern. Most new inmates avoided eye contact. Most of them showed fear. Marcus Hale showed neither. Cole stepped even closer. "So you're the brave type?" Marcus shrugged slightly. "No." Cole frowned. "Then what are you?" Marcus looked at him calmly. "Busy?" Garza burst out laughing again. "Busy?" Cole didn't laugh, because the tone of Marcus's voice wasn't mocking. It wasn't defensive either. It was distracted, as if this entire confrontation was interrupting something more important. Cole lowered his voice. "You think this is funny?" Marcus shook his head. "No." "Then you should start acting like you understand where you are." Marcus finally glanced around the yard again. The high concrete walls, The guard tower, the chain-link fencing topped with razor wire, the dozens of inmates pretending not to watch. "I understand exactly where I am," Marcus said. Cole's patience snapped. He grabbed Marcus by the front of the jumpsuit, hard. Gasps rippled through the yard. Garza grinned. "Now we're getting somewhere." Cole pulled Marcus closer until their faces were inches apart. "You don't talk when I'm talking," Cole said quietly. Marcus looked down at the hand gripping his chest, then back up at Cole. "You should let go," Garza barked a laugh. "Or what?" Marcus didn't answer. Cole leaned closer. "You think you're special?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "No." Cole squeezed the fabric tighter. "Then explain something to me." Marcus waited. "Why are you acting like none of this matters?" For the first time, Marcus smiled slightly. Not arrogance, not defiance, just quiet understanding. "Because it doesn't." Cole's eyes hardened. Garza stepped closer. "Oh, he's going to learn." Mills cracked his neck. Carter moved another step behind Marcus. The circle tightened. The tension in the yard became electric. Everyone watching knew what came next. Cole pulled back his fist. And then, "Cole." The voice came from behind them. Sharp. Commanding. Everyone turned. A guard stood at the edge of the yard. Officer Brennan, 30 years old. New transfer. The kind of guard who still believed rules mattered. He walked toward them slowly. "What's going on here?" Cole released Marcus's shirt, but he didn't step back. "Just welcoming the new guy." Brennan looked at Marcus. "You all right?" Marcus nodded. "Yes." Brennan studied the group. His eyes moved from Cole to Garza to Mills to Carter, then back to Marcus. Something about the situation didn't sit right. Because normally, new inmates looked terrified during their first yard confrontation. Marcus looked bored. Brennan pointed at Cole. "Break it up." Cole smirked. "Already done." The four men stepped back slightly. But they didn't leave. Brennan hesitated, then walked away. Because, technically, no rule had been broken. The moment he reached the fence line, Cole turned back toward Marcus. "You got lucky." Marcus shook his head. "No." Cole frowned. "No?" Marcus spoke quietly. "You got interrupted." Garza laughed again. "You hear this guy?" Cole leaned closer again. "This isn't over." Marcus looked him directly in the eyes. "I know." Cole studied him carefully, because the calmness still didn't make sense. "You really don't understand how this place works." Marcus finally said something different. "Yes, I do." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Then explain it." Marcus glanced around the yard one more time, then back at the four men. "Right now," he said quietly, "everyone here thinks you're in control." Garza grinned. "That's because we are." Marcus's voice stayed calm. "But that's not the real problem." Cole frowned. "What problem?" Marcus paused, then said something that made Garza's grin fade. "The real problem is that you chose the wrong day." Cole's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he looked past them, toward the prison entrance gate. Because something was happening there, something subtle. The heavy steel doors had just opened, and 3 unfamiliar men in dark suits had stepped inside the yard perimeter. No prison uniforms, no inmate numbers, just quiet authority. Garza noticed them next. "Who the hell are those guys?" Cole turned. The suited men were speaking to the prison warden near the gate. The warden looked tense, very tense. Marcus watched the scene calmly, because the timing was perfect. Cole turned back toward him. "What's going on?" Marcus finally gave him an honest answer. "The audit." Cole blinked. "What?" Marcus's voice stayed quiet. "Federal Oversight Division." Garza frowned. "The what?" Marcus nodded slightly toward the gate. "They're here." Cole looked again. The suited men were now walking deeper into the facility, and the warden wasn't smiling anymore. Marcus looked back at the 4 men surrounding him. "You should probably walk away now," Cole scoffed. "Why?" Marcus spoke calmly. "Because if you're standing next to me when they get here—" He paused. "You might end up in the report." Garza laughed again. "This guy's crazy." Cole shook his head. "Yeah." Then he leaned closer one last time. "You think a bunch of suits are going to save you?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past Cole again, because one of the suited men had just pointed toward the yard, and the warden had followed his finger, directly at Marcus. Cole noticed the change in Marcus's expression. "What?" Marcus spoke quietly. "You might want to move." Cole frowned. "Why?" Marcus gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. "Because now they're coming here." And suddenly, the entire prison yard was watching the same thing. 3 federal investigators walking directly toward the circle of inmates, and the calm prisoner standing in the middle of it. The 3 men in suits crossed the yard without hesitation. They didn't rush. They didn't look around, and that alone made the tension in the prison yard tighten like a wire. Because inside Redstone Federal Correctional Facility, outsiders never walked the yard. Not like this, not with that kind of quiet authority. The inmates noticed immediately. Conversation stopped. Weights dropped onto the concrete. The basketball game at the far end of the yard froze mid-play. Even the guards along the fence line straightened. Cole followed Marcus's gaze. The 3 men were walking directly toward them, not wandering, not observing, targeted. Garza frowned. "Why are they looking over here?" Marcus didn't answer. Mills shifted uneasily. "Those ain't prison staff." Cole kept his eyes locked on them. Then he looked back at Marcus. "You know something?" Marcus said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. Carter muttered behind him. "What the hell did this guy do?" Cole grabbed Marcus's shirt again, harder this time. "Talk." Marcus calmly reached down and removed Cole's hand from his chest. Not violently, just firmly. Cole blinked. That wasn't supposed to happen. Most men couldn't move Cole's grip once it locked in. Marcus stepped half a pace back, and suddenly the space between them felt different. Cole's voice dropped lower. "You think I won't finish this?" Marcus spoke quietly. "No." Cole frowned. "Then what?" Marcus looked past him again. "They're about 10 seconds away." Garza turned his head. The suited men were almost there now. One of them held a thin black folder. Another carried a small tablet. The third, older, gray-haired, walked in front. The guards near the fence had begun moving too, not rushing, but positioning themselves closer. Cole noticed. His jaw tightened. "Who are they?" Marcus finally answered. "Federal Oversight Division?" Garza scoffed. "Never heard of it." Marcus nodded. "Most people haven't." The gray-haired man stopped 5 feet away. His eyes moved across the group. Cole, Garza, Mills, Carter, then Marcus. The man's expression shifted slightly. Recognition. He looked down at the folder, then back up. "You're Marcus Hale?" The yard went silent. Because inmates didn't get addressed by name from federal investigators, Marcus nodded once. "Yes." The man extended his hand. "Director Collins." Cole's stomach twisted. Marcus shook the man's hand calmly. "Good timing." Collins glanced briefly at the 4 inmates surrounding him. "Yes," he said quietly. "It appears so," Garza whispered to Cole. "What the hell is happening?" Cole didn't answer, because the situation had just changed in a way he didn't understand. Collins turned slightly toward the prison warden standing behind him. "Warden Fletcher." The warden stepped forward stiffly. "Yes, sir." Collins gestured calmly toward the 4 inmates. Were these men interfering with the operative? The word landed like a stone in water. Operative. Garza blinked. "What?" Cole looked at Marcus, slowly. "Operative?" Marcus didn't respond. Collins continued speaking calmly. Because if they were, he paused. That becomes an obstruction issue. Warden Fletcher's face had turned pale. Cole, he snapped. Step back. Cole didn't move. He stared at Marcus. You're not a prisoner. Marcus said nothing. Collins answered for him. No. Garza laughed nervously. This is some kind of joke. Collins shook his head. No. He opened the folder. Inside were several photographs. He handed one to the warden. The warden stared at it, then looked toward Cole, then Garza, then Mills, then Carter. And suddenly his face drained of color. What is it? Cole demanded. The warden didn't answer. Collins spoke calmly. These 4 individuals were just identified as participants in a federal racketeering investigation. Garza stepped back. What? Collins continued. Smuggling. Mills's fists unclenched. Drug distribution. Carter's mouth opened slightly. Assault contracts. Cole's voice hardened. You can't prove that. Collins looked at Marcus. Actually, he nodded toward him. We can. Cole slowly turned. Marcus stood exactly where he had been the entire time, calm, silent, watching. Collins closed the folder. Mr. Hale has been inside Redstone for 11 months. Garza's voice cracked. 11? Collins nodded. Undercover. Cole felt something cold settle into his chest, because suddenly the last 11 months made sense. The quiet inmate who never joined a gang, the man who watched everything, the one who asked questions, always listening, always calm. Marcus Hale hadn't been surviving prison. He had been studying it. Collins continued. During that time, he documented a corruption network involving inmate gangs. He glanced toward the warden. And prison staff. The yard erupted in whispers, because now everyone understood something. Marcus Hale wasn't prey. He was evidence. Cole stepped back slowly. You set us up, Marcus finally spoke again. No. Cole's eyes burned. You recorded everything. Marcus nodded slightly. Yes. Garza shook his head. You came here just to trap us. Marcus answered calmly. No. Garza frowned. Then why? Marcus's voice remained quiet. I came here to find out who was running it. Collins added the final piece. And now we know. Cole felt the shift instantly, because this wasn't about him anymore. Someone bigger was involved, someone inside the prison. Collins turned toward the warden again. Warden Fletcher. The man stiffened. Yes. Collins' voice stayed calm. You're under investigation for conspiracy to facilitate organized criminal activity inside a federal facility. The warden froze. That's ridiculous. Collins didn't argue. He simply nodded toward the guards approaching behind him. Then you won't mind answering a few questions? The guards looked uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Because half the prison staff had just realized something terrible. They had been working in a facility that was secretly under federal investigation for almost a year. And the quiet inmate in orange was the reason why. Cole looked at Marcus one last time. You played us. Marcus shook his head. No. Cole's jaw clenched. You watched us. Marcus nodded. Yes. Cole exhaled slowly. Why didn't you stop us sooner? Marcus looked around the yard, at the dozens of inmates watching, at the guards shifting nervously, at the warden being escorted away. Then he answered quietly. Because the real problem wasn't you. Cole frowned. Then who? Marcus looked toward the administration building, where 2 more black SUVs had just pulled through the main gate. Federal agents stepping out. He gave the answer calmly. The people who were protecting you. And suddenly, the prison yard realized something terrifying. This wasn't just an investigation. It was a takeover. The first black SUV rolled through the inner gate slowly. Then, a second one followed. Both vehicles carried the same markings on their doors. Small, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. FOD, Federal Oversight Division. The yard had never seen vehicles like that inside the inner perimeter. Inmates were now standing everywhere, no one pretending to exercise anymore. No one pretending not to watch, because something bigger than a fight had just taken over the prison. Cole stood frozen. Garza whispered beside him, This isn't real." Marcus looked at him calmly. "Oh, it's real." Across the yard, 4 federal agents stepped out of the SUVs. Not prison guards, not marshals, something else entirely. Black tactical jackets. No insignia except the same 3 letters. FOD. Director Collins spoke quietly into his radio. "Phase 2 is active." The agents began moving, not toward the yard, toward the administration building, the building that controlled inmate records, surveillance feeds, guard assignments, transfer logs, the real brain of the prison. And suddenly, the guards at the fence line started arguing because some of them knew exactly what was happening. Officer Brennan stepped closer to Collins. "What's going on here?" Collins looked at him briefly. "Internal audit." Brennan frowned. "This looks bigger than an audit." Collins gave a small nod. "Yes." Then he said something that made Brennan's stomach tighten. "Redstone is being placed under federal oversight." The word spread across the yard like wildfire. Federal oversight. That meant one thing: the prison staff was no longer in charge. Cole stared at Marcus again. "You knew this was coming." Marcus didn't deny it. "Yes." Garza shook his head. "You let us walk right into it." Marcus's voice stayed calm. "No." Garza's anger spiked. "You watched us." Marcus nodded. "Yes." Cole took a slow step backward because something about Marcus's posture had changed. He wasn't standing like an inmate anymore. He wasn't standing like prey. He looked exactly like what he really was, a man running an operation. Across the yard, agents reached the administration building. The front doors opened, then slammed shut behind them. 30 seconds later, the entire prison siren system came alive. A deep mechanical alarm echoed through the concrete walls. Inmates froze, because that alarm was never used during normal operations. That was a lockdown alarm. Officer Brennan grabbed his radio. "Control, what's happening?" Static. Then a voice. "Administrative lockdown in progress." Brennan looked toward Collins. "You shut down the prison?" Collins corrected him calmly. "No." Then he nodded toward the building. "We shut down the network." Inside the administration building, federal agents were already moving. One of them plugged a device into the central server rack. Another began copying security footage. A third began pulling guard duty records. Because Redstone had a problem. A very big one. For the past 8 months, certain inmates had been moving through the prison system without records, transfers, disappearances, violent attacks, all happening inside a federal facility that supposedly had full surveillance coverage. And every trail eventually led back to one place: Redstone. Marcus had been sent to find out why. And now, they had the answer. Back in the yard, the tension was boiling over. Garza suddenly stepped forward. "This is garbage." He pointed at Marcus. "You think some suits are going to protect you?" Marcus didn't move. Garza shoved him, hard. Gasps rippled through the yard. Cole grabbed Garza's arm. "Stop!" But Garza had already committed. "You think you're safe?" He raised his fist. Marcus moved faster than anyone expected. Not aggressive. Precise. He caught Garza's wrist mid-swing, twisted. Garza dropped to one knee instantly. Pain exploded across his face. The yard erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus released him calmly. Garza collapsed onto the concrete. Cole stared. "You're not just an investigator?" Marcus shook his head slightly. "No," Collins answered for him. "Former military." Cole exhaled slowly. That explained everything. The calm, the patience, the control. Marcus Hale wasn't just gathering evidence. He had been trained for situations exactly like this. Across the yard, the administration building doors burst open. Agents stepped out again. One of them walked quickly toward Collins. "Director." Collins turned. "Report." The agent handed him a tablet. Collins scanned the screen. Then his expression hardened. "Of course." Brennan looked between them. "What did you find?" Collins turned the screen toward him. A list of names appeared. Guard names, staff members, transport officers, dozens of them, connected to unauthorized inmate transfers, Brennan whispered. "That's half the staff." Collins nodded. "Yes." Then he said something even worse. "And it goes higher." Marcus already knew that part, because the deeper problem wasn't the guards, it wasn't the gangs, it wasn't even the warden. It was the contracts. Redstone Prison was partially funded by a private corrections corporation, Helios Correctional Services. The same company Marcus had encountered during another investigation months earlier. And Helios didn't just run prisons. They managed transportation, construction, security. And somewhere inside those contracts was a pipeline moving dangerous inmates through the system. Off the books. Invisible. Collins spoke quietly. "Notify Washington?" The agent nodded. Then he asked the question everyone was thinking. "Do we bring in the marshals?" Collins shook his head slowly. "No." Brennan frowned. "Why not?" Collins looked across the yard. At the inmates, at the guards, at the building now under federal control. Then he answered calmly. "Because this investigation just crossed into something bigger." Marcus understood immediately. Because there was one name in the contract files he had already seen, a name that didn't belong in a prison contract, a name connected to something far more powerful. The Meridian Group, a shadow network that had quietly appeared in multiple investigations across the country. Marcus looked at Collins. "You found it," Collins nodded. "Yes." Cole watched the exchange. "What are you talking about?" Marcus looked back at him. "You thought the prison gangs were running this place." Cole said nothing. Marcus continued quietly. "They weren't." Cole frowned. "Then who was?" Marcus looked toward the administration building again, where federal agents were still moving inside. Then he gave the answer. "The people who built the system." And somewhere far away, inside a glass office tower thousands of miles from Redstone Prison, a notification appeared on a secure screen. Redstone investigation activated. A man standing beside the window read the message silently. Then he made a phone call. "Marcus Hale is still alive." A pause. "Yes." Another pause. "I understand." The man ended the call and quietly gave an order. "Move the next operation forward." Because the Redstone Prison investigation was only one piece of something much larger. The rain hadn't started yet, but the air inside Redstone felt heavy, like a storm waiting just outside the walls. Marcus Hale stood in the middle of the prison yard, while federal agents moved quickly across the compound. Inmates had been ordered to the ground. Some obeyed immediately. Others hesitated. But the moment the second siren sounded, everyone understood something had changed. This wasn't a normal lockdown. This was a takeover. Cole sat on the concrete nearby, staring at Marcus with a look that was no longer angry. It was calculating. "You brought the feds inside a federal prison," Cole said slowly. Marcus didn't respond. Cole leaned forward slightly. "You know what that means." Marcus looked at him. "Yes." Garza was still holding his wrist, groaning quietly. And Mills and Carter had moved farther back, their confidence gone. The yard was now full of agents. Black tactical jackets, small communication earpieces, quiet movements that didn't belong to prison staff. Director Collins stood beside Marcus. His eyes scanned the yard like a man checking the final pieces of a puzzle. Officer Brennan approached again. "You've locked down the entire facility." Collins nodded. "Yes." Brennan lowered his voice. "You think there's resistance coming?" Collins answered calmly. There already is. Brennan frowned. From who? Collins gestured toward the administration building. The people we haven't arrested yet? Inside the building, federal agents were moving through the control room. Computer drives were being copied, security cameras were being rerouted, transfer records were being extracted. One agent leaned over a monitor. Director. Collins pressed his radio. Go ahead. We found the transport logs. A pause, and the agent hesitated. There are at least 30 undocumented transfers. Brennan blinked. 30. The voice on the radio continued. And that's just this year. Marcus already knew that part. He had seen enough pieces during the last 11 months to suspect it. But hearing the number confirmed something worse. Redstone wasn't just corrupt. It was a hub, a central node in a network moving inmates through the system without records. Collins asked the next question carefully. Destination? The answer came immediately. Multiple sites. Brennan frowned. Other prisons? The agent paused again. Not exactly. Collins' voice hardened. Explain. Some of the destinations aren't correctional facilities. Silence filled the yard. Marcus looked toward Collins because they both understood the implication instantly. Black sites, private detention centers, facilities that existed inside legal gray zones, Brennan whispered. That's impossible. Marcus finally spoke again. No. Brennan turned. You knew? Marcus nodded slightly. I suspected. Collins asked the next question. Do the files show who authorized them? The radio crackled. Yes. Another pause. Multiple signatures. Collins sighed. Helios? The agent answered quietly. Yes. Brennan looked confused. What's Helios? Marcus answered. A private corrections contractor. Brennan frowned. They run some facilities. Marcus shook his head. They run more than that, Collins added quietly. They run logistics. Brennan's stomach tightened. Transport. Collins nodded. Exactly. Which meant the prison gangs had only been one layer. The guards another. The warden another. But the real operation sat outside the prison walls. Garza looked between them. You're saying this whole place is part of some corporate pipeline? Marcus answered calmly. Yes. Cole stared at him. And you came here to prove it. Marcus nodded. Yes. Cole leaned back slowly. That's insane. Marcus didn't argue. Across the yard, one of the agents suddenly shouted, Director! Collins turned. What is it? The agent ran across the concrete, tablet in hand. We just accessed the remote contracts. Collins looked at the screen, then his expression changed. Marcus noticed immediately. What? Collins turned the tablet toward him. A single name sat at the top of the document. Not Helios. Something above it. Something far worse. Marcus read it once, then again, and finally spoke quietly. Meridian. Brennan frowned. What's that? Marcus didn't answer. Because he had heard that name before, in another investigation, another city, another hidden operation, the Meridian Group, a shadow organization connected to infrastructure contracts, security networks, and intelligence logistics. They never appeared directly. They existed above the companies, above the contractors, above the public system. Marcus looked toward Collins. They're involved. Collins nodded grimly. Yes. Cole watched the exchange carefully. You two look like you just saw a ghost. Marcus looked back at him. Not a ghost. Cole frowned. Then what? Marcus answered quietly. The people who built the system? Brennan looked at the tablet again. You're telling me some secret network is running prisons? Collins corrected him. No. Then he gestured around the facility. They're using them. At that exact moment, the prison lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the entire yard went dark. Gasps erupted across the inmates. Emergency lights flickered on along the fence line. Brennan grabbed his radio. Control! Static. Then a voice. "Power failure in administration." Colin's eyes narrowed. "That's not a failure," Marcus already knew. "Someone's inside the system." The radio crackled again. "Director!" The voice came from inside the administration building. "They're wiping the servers." Colin's voice sharpened. "Who?" "We don't know." Marcus turned toward the building because suddenly everything made sense. The investigation had moved too fast. The network had noticed. And now someone inside Redstone was trying to erase the evidence. Marcus started walking. Fast. Collins followed. Brennan shouted behind them. "Where are you going?" Marcus answered without stopping. "To stop them. Because if the servers were wiped, 11 months of evidence would disappear, and the people behind Meridian would vanish back into the shadows." Marcus pushed through the administration doors. Agents inside were already moving. "Server room." Marcus ran down the hallway, Collins behind him. 2 agents joined them. They reached the steel door at the end of the corridor. Locked. Marcus didn't hesitate. He drove his shoulder into it. The lock snapped. The door burst open. Inside the server room, a man stood in front of the central rack, uploading something. He turned slowly. Marcus stopped. Because he recognized the face, not a guard, not an inmate. Someone far more unexpected. Officer Brennan. But Brennan was supposed to be outside. Marcus's voice dropped. "You." The man smiled slightly. "You were never supposed to get this far." Collins stepped forward. "Step away from the system." Brennan shook his head. "I can't do that." Marcus's eyes moved to the monitor. The progress bar was nearly complete. "What are you uploading?" Brennan's smile widened. "Insurance." Marcus stepped closer. "For who?" Brennan answered quietly. "For Meridian." The progress bar hit 100%. And suddenly, Marcus realized something terrifying. The data wasn't being deleted. It was being sent somewhere else. Marcus stared at the screen. The upload had finished. A thin green line appeared beneath the progress bar. "Transfer complete." Collins stepped forward slowly. "You just transmitted 11 months of federal evidence." Brennan didn't look worried. In fact, he looked relieved. Marcus noticed immediately. "You weren't trying to erase the data." Brennan shook his head. "No." Marcus's voice dropped. "You were sending it." Brennan nodded. "Yes." Collins' jaw tightened. "To who?" Brennan tapped the keyboard once. A location appeared on the screen. Meridian Archive Node. Secure. Marcus felt the air in the room change, because this meant something far worse than destroying evidence. Meridian now had a copy of everything, every recording, every name, every operation Marcus had uncovered inside Redstone. Collins spoke quietly. "You just gave them our entire investigation." Brennan leaned back against the server rack. "You're looking at it wrong." Marcus stepped closer. "Explain." Brennan looked at him. "You think Meridian wanted to stop you?" Marcus didn't answer, because that was exactly what he had assumed. Brennan continued. "They didn't." Collins frowned. "That makes no sense." Brennan gestured toward the screen. "They wanted the evidence." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "For what?" Brennan gave a calm answer. "To clean house." The words hung in the cold server room. Marcus felt something click into place. Because if Meridian now had the evidence, they knew exactly who inside their network had been exposed, which meant the corrupt guards, the transport coordinators, the prison contractors, everyone Marcus had uncovered, was now a liability. Collins said what Marcus was thinking. "You just handed them a hit list." Brennan smiled slightly. "Exactly." Marcus's voice hardened. "How long have you been working for them?" Brennan didn't hesitate. 7 years. Collins stepped forward. "You infiltrated federal corrections." Brennan shook his head. "No." He looked at Marcus. "They placed me here." Marcus exhaled slowly, which meant the operation had been compromised long before he arrived. The radio on Collins's shoulder suddenly crackled. "Director!" Collins grabbed it. "Report!" The voice on the other end sounded panicked. "We've got movement in the yard." Marcus turned immediately. "What kind of movement?" "Multiple inmates fighting." Collins frowned. "Why?" The voice answered quickly. "They're panicking." Marcus already understood why. If Meridian had the evidence, the network inside the prison would know the investigation was finished, which meant everyone connected to it was now in danger. Cole, Garza, Mills, Carter, the guards, the transport officers, every piece of the system Marcus had uncovered, they would all be trying to run or silence anyone who knew too much. Marcus turned back to Brennan. "You triggered it." Brennan nodded. "Yes." Collins grabbed his radio again. "All units secure the yard." But the sounds were already reaching the hallway. Shouting, metal doors slamming, inmates yelling. The prison was breaking apart. Marcus looked back at the screen. The Meridian upload confirmation was gone. Instead, a new message appeared. "Archive verified," Marcus whispered. "They've received it." Brennan nodded. "Yes." Collins stepped closer to him. "Why?" Brennan looked directly at Marcus. "Because Meridian doesn't like loose ends." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Meaning what?" Brennan answered calmly. "Meaning everyone in your investigation is about to disappear." The server room door burst open. An agent rushed inside. "Director," Collins turned. "What?" "We just lost external communications." Marcus looked at Brennan. "You planned this?" Brennan nodded. "Yes." Marcus's voice hardened. "You locked down the prison?" "Correct." Collins stepped closer. "You're not leaving here." Brennan didn't argue. "I know." Marcus frowned. "You're not trying to escape." Brennan shook his head. "No." Marcus studied him carefully. "Then, what are you doing?" Brennan answered quietly. "Completing my assignment." Marcus's eyes moved to the computer screen again because a second message had just appeared. Meridian response confirmed below it. Another line. "Sanitization." "Protocol initiated," Marcus whispered. "Oh no." Collins looked at him. "What?" Marcus turned toward the hallway. "They're not coming to erase the data." Collins frowned. "Then what?" Marcus answered quietly. "They're coming to erase the witnesses." At that exact moment, a distant rumble shook the prison walls. Not inside, outside. Brennan smiled faintly. "Right on time." Marcus ran to the hallway window. Beyond the outer fence, black helicopters were descending toward the prison grounds. No markings, no lights, silent. Collins stared. "Those aren't federal." Marcus nodded. "No." Brennan spoke calmly behind them. "Meridian cleanup team." Collins' voice hardened. "They can't just enter a federal facility." Brennan shrugged. "Watch them." Marcus looked at the helicopters lowering toward the perimeter. Because the operation had just changed completely. This was no longer an investigation. It was a race. A race to keep the people in this prison alive long enough to expose Meridian. Marcus turned back toward Collins. "We have minutes," Collins nodded. "Then we move." The sirens outside grew louder. The helicopters touched down beyond the fence, and somewhere deep inside the prison yard, Cole was staring up at the sky, realizing something terrifying. The man he had threatened earlier was the only person inside Redstone who might be able to stop what was coming. Marcus burst out of the server room first. Collins and two agents followed immediately. Behind them, Brennan remained leaning calmly against the server rack, watching them leave as if the outcome was already decided. The hallway outside was chaos. Radios shouting, boots pounding against concrete. Some guards running toward the yard, others locking internal doors. Marcus grabbed Collins' arm. "Listen to me." Collins turned. "We don't have time." Marcus pointed toward the outer yard. "If Meridian sent a cleanup team, they won't storm the prison." Collins frowned. Then what? Marcus gave the answer quickly. They'll use the chaos. Colin's eyes narrowed. Meaning? They'll target specific inmates. Collins immediately understood. Cole, Garza, Mills, Carter. Anyone Marcus had been watching, anyone who could testify, anyone who knew how the smuggling pipeline worked. Collins raised his radio. All units, priority protection on inmates flagged in the Redstone report. The agent behind him spoke. Director, we've got another problem. Collins turned. What now? The agent held up a tablet. The prison yard cameras had just come back online. But something was wrong. The video feed showed the helicopters clearly now, 3 of them, landing just outside the outer fence. Marcus looked closer. Black tactical teams were already moving toward the perimeter gate. Collins' voice hardened. They're moving fast. Marcus nodded. They'll try to get inside before Washington even realizes what's happening. Collins grabbed the radio again. Seal the outer gate. Static answered him. Then, a voice. Gate control isn't responding. Marcus exhaled slowly. They already have someone inside. Collins didn't argue, because Brennan had already proven Meridian had been embedded in the prison for years. Marcus started walking toward the stairwell. Where are you going? Collins asked. To the yard. Collins frowned. That's exactly where they'll strike. Marcus nodded. Yes. Collins understood immediately. They're coming for Cole. Marcus glanced back. Yes. Collins followed him. Because if Meridian wanted to eliminate witnesses, Cole was at the top of that list. The 2 men burst through the stairwell door and sprinted across the lower corridor. Up ahead, the yard gates were opening. Marcus pushed through. The moment they stepped into the open air, the noise hit them. Inmates shouting, guards yelling, the alarm still echoing across the prison. And above it all, the thunder of helicopter blades. Cole stood near the fence where Marcus had left him earlier. Garza was pacing nearby. Mills and Carter were arguing with a guard. When Cole saw Marcus running toward them, he frowned. What now? Marcus didn't slow down. You need to move. Cole crossed his arms. Why? Marcus pointed toward the outer fence. The helicopters were clearly visible now, 3 black shapes hovering beyond the wall. Cole squinted. What is that? Marcus answered bluntly. The people who want you dead. Garza laughed nervously. You serious? Marcus didn't respond. Instead, he looked toward the guard towers. 2 of them had just gone dark. Cole noticed. What's happening? Marcus grabbed him by the shoulder. You have information. Cole shoved his hand away. So? Marcus's voice hardened. So Meridian doesn't leave witnesses. Cole's expression changed, because for the first time, the giant inmate looked afraid. One of the guards shouted from the tower. Movement outside the wall. The entire yard turned toward the fence. Black figures were climbing over the perimeter. Fast. Too fast. Not inmates, not guards, professional operators, Garza whispered. Those guys aren't prison staff. Marcus nodded. No. Collins stepped forward beside him. Federal agents, form up! The FOD team spread across the yard instantly. Weapons drawn. Inmates scattered away from the center. Cole looked at Marcus again. You brought a war to this prison. Marcus answered calmly. No. He pointed toward the wall. They did. The first Meridian operator dropped onto the inside of the yard, then another, then another. Silent, precise, each one carrying suppressed rifles. Cole stared. Those aren't here for a prison fight? Marcus shook his head. No. The first shot rang out. A guard tower window shattered. The prison yard erupted. Inmates ran in every direction. Guards dove for cover. The Meridian team moved through the chaos like ghosts. One operator raised his rifle. Marcus saw the red laser sweep across the yard, directly onto Cole's chest. Marcus moved before anyone else could react. He shoved Cole sideways. The bullet cracked past them and slammed into the concrete. Cole hit the ground hard. What the hell? Marcus grabbed him. Stay down! Collins shouted across the yard. Return fire! The federal agents engaged. Gunfire echoed off the prison walls. The Meridian team scattered across the yard. Marcus pulled Cole behind a concrete bench. Garza slid down beside them. "This is insane!" Cole looked at Marcus. "You just saved my life." Marcus didn't answer, because he was watching something else. One of the Meridian operators had stopped moving. Instead of shooting, he was scanning the yard, looking for someone. Marcus realized immediately. "They're not hunting everyone." Cole frowned. "Then who?" Marcus looked straight at him. "You." Cole exhaled slowly. "You weren't kidding," Garza whispered. "What do we do?" Marcus glanced toward Collins. The director was coordinating the agents near the yard gate. They had pushed the Meridian team back slightly, but not for long. Marcus knew how these teams worked. They weren't here to win a firefight. They were here to finish an objective. Marcus looked back at Cole. "You know how the transport system works." Cole nodded slowly. "Yes." Marcus's voice stayed calm. "Then you're coming with us." Cole frowned. "Where?" Marcus pointed toward the administration building. "That server room." Garza blinked. "You want to go back inside?" Marcus nodded. "Yes." Cole stared at him. "Why?" Marcus gave the only answer that mattered. Because the only way to stop Meridian, he looked toward the helicopters hovering above the prison wall, just to prove they exist. Cole exhaled slowly, then nodded. "All right." Marcus turned toward Collins. "We're moving." Collins looked at him. "You're taking him inside?" Marcus nodded. "He's the key." Collins hesitated, then gave the order. 2 agents with Hale. The team formed instantly. Marcus grabbed Cole's arm. "Stay close." Garza and the others hesitated. "Us too?" Garza asked. Marcus shook his head. "No." Garza looked stunned. "Why not?" Marcus answered quietly. "Because they're not here for you." The Meridian operators were already adjusting their positions. One of them raised his rifle again, tracking Marcus now, not Cole. Marcus realized something far worse. Cole whispered, "What is it?" Marcus didn't look away from the operators. "They changed targets." Cole frowned. "What?" Marcus's voice dropped. "They're not trying to kill you anymore." Cole blinked. "Then who?" Marcus looked up at the rifle aimed across the yard. The red laser had moved. Now it was centered on his chest. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Me." The red laser didn't shake. It stayed perfectly still on Marcus Hale's chest. Across the prison yard, the Meridian operator adjusted his stance slightly, steadying the rifle against the concrete barrier. Marcus saw it immediately. Professional, patient, not rushing. That meant one thing. They had already finished Phase 1, the prison chaos, the distraction. Now they were completing the real objective. Cole grabbed Marcus's sleeve. "They're aiming at you." Marcus nodded. "I know." Garza peeked over the concrete bench. "You better do something about it." Marcus exhaled slowly, because this moment had been inevitable. The second Meridian realized the investigation had exposed them, Marcus Hale became the most dangerous witness alive. And Meridian never left dangerous witnesses breathing. Collins shouted across the yard, "Hale, move!" Marcus didn't move. Not yet. Because the sniper was waiting for exactly that. "Movement," Cole whispered. "What's the plan?" Marcus spoke quietly. "We break the angle." Cole frowned. "The what?" Marcus pointed subtly. The sniper's line of fire ran across the open concrete yard, but one structure cut across that path. The metal exercise cage. If Marcus could reach it, the sniper's shot would be blocked. But the cage was 30 yards away, across open ground. Garza stared. "You run that distance, he'll drop you." Marcus nodded. "Yes." Cole frowned. "So, we're dead." Marcus looked at him calmly. "No." Cole blinked. "What?" Marcus's eyes moved upward. Cole followed his gaze. The helicopters, still hovering beyond the wall. Marcus spoke quietly. "They're waiting." Cole frowned. For what? Marcus answered. For confirmation. Cole didn't understand. Confirmation of what? Marcus looked back at the sniper. That I'm dead. Cole's expression hardened. Then don't give it to them. Marcus nodded. Exactly, Collins shouted again. Hail! Marcus raised his hand slightly. Wait. Collins froze, because he understood something about Marcus Hale. If the man asked for a second, he had a reason. Marcus leaned toward Cole. When I move, Cole nodded. Yeah? Push the bench. Cole blinked. This thing weighs 200 pounds. Marcus looked at him. You're strong. Cole grinned slightly. Fair point. Garza looked between them. What about me? Marcus answered calmly. Stay down. Garza nodded immediately. No problem. Marcus inhaled slowly. Across the yard. The sniper adjusted the rifle again. The red dot stayed centered. Perfect shot. Marcus moved, not running, not yet. He stood up. The sniper fired instantly. Cole shoved the bench sideways. The heavy metal slammed into Marcus's shoulder as the bullet cracked through the air. The shot missed. Marcus sprinted. The yard exploded with gunfire again. Federal agents fired toward the wall. Meridian operators returned fire. But Marcus wasn't part of that fight. He ran straight for the exercise cage, 20 yards. The sniper fired again. The bullet sparked against the concrete. Marcus dove, rolled, and slid behind the metal cage bars. Safe. For now, Collins shouted across the yard, Inside! Move! 2 agents rushed forward and joined Marcus behind the cage. Cole followed seconds later. Garza crawled behind them. Cole panted. That was insane. Marcus nodded. Yes. Cole looked toward the wall. You think they're done? Marcus shook his head. No, because the Meridian team hadn't retreated. They had only shifted positions, and something about their movement felt deliberate. Collins joined them behind the cage. They're not pushing forward. Marcus nodded. I see it. Cole frowned. What? Marcus pointed. The Meridian operators had spread out along the wall, but none of them were firing anymore. Instead, they were looking upward. Toward the helicopters, Collins whispered. That's not good. Marcus nodded slowly. No. Cole frowned. Why? Marcus answered quietly. Because Phase 2 just started. The first helicopter dipped lower. Then, the side door opened. A man stepped out onto the landing rail, not wearing tactical gear, a suit, dark, clean, untouched by the chaos below. He held onto the rail with one hand as the helicopter hovered above the prison wall. Cole squinted. Who the hell is that? Marcus felt his stomach tighten, because he recognized the silhouette. Collins whispered beside him. You know him. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes. Cole looked between them. Then tell me. Marcus's voice dropped. That's the Meridian Observer. Cole frowned. The what? Marcus answered. The man who makes sure the cleanup happens. The helicopter lowered slightly. The suited man stepped off onto the prison wall platform. He didn't look rushed. He didn't look worried. He simply looked down at the prison yard like someone inspecting construction work. Then his eyes stopped on Marcus. Even from that distance, Marcus could feel it. Recognition. The man smiled slightly. Cole muttered. He looks pretty calm for someone in the middle of a war. Marcus nodded. Yes. Cole frowned. Why? Marcus answered quietly. Because he thinks it's already over. Collins leaned closer. Is it? Marcus looked back at the server room building behind them. Then at the helicopters. Then at the man standing on the wall. And finally he said something that made Cole realize the situation was far from finished. No. Cole blinked. Why not? Marcus's voice stayed calm. Because Meridian thinks they erased the investigation. Cole frowned. Didn't they? Marcus shook his head slowly. No. Cole leaned closer. Then where's the evidence? Marcus gave a small smile. Somewhere they can't reach. The man on the wall spoke into a radio. Seconds later, the Meridian operators began retreating toward the fence. Cole blinked. "They're leaving," Marcus nodded. "Yes," Collins frowned. "They didn't finish the job." Marcus looked up at the helicopter. "No." Cole crossed his arms. "Then what was this?" Marcus watched the helicopter lift away slowly. Then he gave the answer. "A warning." Collins frowned. "For who?" Marcus looked across the prison yard, at the agents, at the inmates, at the burning chaos Meridian had just walked away from. Then he spoke quietly. "For anyone who tries to expose them." Cole exhaled slowly. "Great." Marcus looked at him. "You still want to testify?" Cole stared at him, then nodded. "Yes." Marcus smiled slightly. "Good." Cole frowned. "Why?" Marcus looked toward the horizon beyond the prison walls, because the war with Meridian had just become something bigger than a prison investigation, and the only way to win it was to take the fight outside the walls. Marcus spoke quietly. "Because this is just the beginning.